just a genre of fiction called Omegaverse, and it's basically like if you supplemented like wolf hierarchies and mating patterns onto humans. What would that be like?
I've just outed Gabe, but she was told
It's just the defeat in your voice, like the resignation, like
I sat her down. I sadly explained it. I said sorry many times that was something I've read and have also now shared with her.
Hey, you over there.
Yeah?
Guess what?
What?
You wanna talk spooky stuff?
Okay.
Hi, I'm Kay.
And I am Gabe.
You're a ghoul.
Sure am.
Wow, same.
What brings you here next to me?
I'm kinda over humanity.
Yeah, people are trash.
Just like our bodies.
You know there's a lot to say about how medium is made.
Like there's a more to every story.
Exactly. It's fascinating. We could make a show.
A show?
And we'll let everybody know. Use our brains.
Brains.
No, not to eat. To educate.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I guess you could say we're the ghouls next
door.
It's so fun. Okay, hi, I'm Kat.
And I'm Gabe. Hold on, I just want everyone to see Charlie here. She's just purring away. So people might hear Charlie. I'm Gabe, or the Phantom. And we're the ghouls next door. Talking about spooky stuff and being magical and musical right now.
Yeah, singing about it as well.
Yes.
You can't just do one.
No. I think it's a little obvious what we're going to be talking about today. But if you weren't paying attention and you're just like, that's just what Gabe does. It's wearing a lopsided mask that don't fit her face because it was like $3. We're going to be talking about Phantom of the Opera, which is, I mean, probably the most musical of musicals that we've covered.
Yeah, like in terms of like, this is 100% a horrific musical that has been on Broadway in the classical sense, was not just a movie, was also like a very long living Broadway
very
musical.
Long to watch as well.
Yeah, it was 2 hours and change.
Runtime. Yeah, and I think it's also fun that because this is our guest episode and we've had it planned for quite a while, because I was like, if we're going to do musicals, right, and we're going to cover Phantom of the Opera, then there's a specific guest that I had in mind, because I'm like a big fan of hers anyway, but I was like, if anyone knows anything about Phantom of the Opera, and also just about music, like musicals and performing, our guest is phenomenal with that. And I have seen her perform improvised musicals, so we'll ask her a bit about that. And so we have Angelina here. Welcome.
Hi. Hello. Great to be on here. I don't care about Phantom of the Opera at all. I'm just holding this bear by pure coincidence.
Yeah.
Yes.
No reason.
Yeah. And I sent, when I saw you went to, it was a Broadway, like, flea market? Is that what it was? That you got the monkey from?
Yes. So every year, Broadway Cares, which Equity Fights AIDS, is the big Broadway union side project that raises money for AIDS research. Like, if you've ever been to a Broadway show, you've probably seen... Sorry, I was just checking to make sure I was speeding again real quick because I'm paranoid. You've probably seen cast members at the end soliciting donations or, you know. And so the flea market is just basically all of the shows and various unions that work on Broadway have tables of just donated stuff, whether it's from people that worked on shows or who are in those guilds that have, like, just all sorts of related paraphernalia. They put it up and they sell it for money that goes to that. And then they do auctions for, like, really cool stuff, but the thing I wanted, which was Phantom related, started at $5,000. So that was not happening.
Yeah.
I was like,
Oh,
nope.
Lord.
Nope. I was like, can I look at the starting bid for that? And they handed me the clipboard, and I was like, it'll be like, what, $300? Oh my God, So had to walk away from that one, sadly. But yes,
Like,
I was there.
The chandelier, like that's wild.
It was literally one of the, like, I guess we'll get into it, but like the management in the show, they get letters from the opera ghost, and like it was a prop letter that was signed by the original Phantom on or in London and on Broadway, Michael Crawford. So yeah,
Oh, that's
I was like,
so cool. I get it.
yeah,
but
it was very cool.
It's a big deal. Just
$5,000.
so expensive.
for like
Yeah.
just being a big fan. But you did
Yeah.
get a piece, and I when I saw that, I immediately sent it to Kat, and I was like, here's to further validate why I chose this guest to come on.
Yeah, my little commemorative monkey music box, which I
Yeah.
could run downstairs and get it. I didn't think to bring it up here with me, but it is a piece. And I saw it at a table yesterday, or rather Sunday, and I never I'm a pretty passive person, but like it got like middle school, like I'm gonna fight somebody for this. Just like
Get out of the way.
yeah,
I need
probably
this.
worn out for my rest. Yeah, no, it was just like my brain didn't even think about it. I just saw it, and like I'm so hardwired at this point to just be like, is that a Phantom thing? That like I went like that.
Must
And the
own.
rest must own. We have like this small house. My husband's like, please don't bring home any more things, especially if they're Phantom things. I'm begging you. And so it's just like, hey, honey, brought a music
What I
box back.
found.
Yeah, I have that
Yeah.
with like Halloween anything, like especially
Oh, yeah.
now that it's like the time
Yeah.
of the year, like any store, like we were in like Home Depot to get like something to fix something in the bathroom, and like he's like, all right, like putting on the blinders, like you can't look over there. I know there's lawn ornaments and we don't have a lawn, but you want that skeleton. And I was like, but I need it.
Oh,
actually, I didn't know, but I need that.
I get it now because like our kids finally old enough to be excited for Halloween, and we live in a duplex on the second, third, and fourth floor, and our neighbors on the first floor are like, you can go ahead and decorate the porch, but we've never done it. And this year our daughter's very excited about Halloween, so like just a storm has gone off in my head. I've just started decorating, like buying all sorts of just like, skeletons giving thumbs up and stuff like that to put on the porch, just because like I've just become that person. I'm gonna be like the obnoxious PTA mom that's like, no, let me handle the Halloween
Make
decorations.
the cool cupcakes.
Yeah, exactly.
I was literally
I love
just the other
Halloween.
day, like, I want a porch so that I can decorate it for Halloween. And my partner was like, okay, but when do you take it down? And I was like, take it down? What do you mean?
What is
It's
down?
always Halloween. Yeah,
Always
it's
that.
always that.
Yeah.
So I
Eternal
get
Halloween.
obsession. Yes.
I understand
I
it.
would love for you to kind of talk about yourself a little bit and
Okay.
introduce yourself to our viewers and listeners to get a glimpse into like who you are and why you're an amazing guest for this episode specifically.
That's the first time anyone has ever called me amazing, and I have a kid and a husband. No. So my name's Angelina Meehan, and I guess, it's weird because I never thought I'd have anything that remotely looks like a platform, which is, again, that sounds way more hyperbolic than it actually is, but like, I currently am an editor and writer for a YouTube channel. You might know her. Her name is Lindsay Ellis. I'm her co-writer and co-editor. And I've been doing that for about 4 years for her professionally, but I've known her since I was 13 years old. We met on fanfiction.net. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. We met on fanfiction.net in 2001. And somehow, like, we just became like internet BFFs, basically. And now she's my boss, and not just one of my best friends, but also just someone who I just genuinely enjoy creating with. So that's my main gig right now. And we do side projects. Like right now we're working on something for PBS, but outside of that, like my main gig is I really, really, really like musical theater, and I like performing and doing comedy. So prior to COVID, I was doing a lot of improv comedy, which is how I met Gabe. A team I was on called Metropolis did a show at Philly Cam, and Gabe was fantastic and bubbly, and I made like the experience so fun. And I also do musical improv. I'm on hiatus right now, but I'm going to be going back soon to it, just because I got pregnant and then COVID happened. So, but they're starting
That's
back
real.
up. So, yeah, it's, but like, yeah, so musical improv, which is exactly what it sounds in the case of the team that I did, Thank You Places, it is, we do an hour-long show made up on the spot, and it have full music accompanied by piano, that sort of thing. And it's fantastic, and I'm actually going to be doing a comedy puppet show in Philly for Christmas, so I'm very, very excited about that, and it's going to have music in it and everything. It's a musical too, so I really love musical theater, like just kind of always been too much energy for, four walls, too much energy, not enough energy for sports, rather. I never ran that high school mile. But so musical theater always just kind of seemed to be like that perfect in between,
That's so cool. Yeah. I one love Lindsay Ellis. My partner's a big fan, and I feel like he still doesn't believe me whenever I say I'm friends with you. He's like, really? But I love the just learning more, and it's also super entertaining. And to kind of like see your like adventures alongside her and like where you're going.
Yeah. So I guess I should clarify. Like we talk a lot about pop culture and media studies, and it's primarily through an entertainment comedic bent, but we also do try to be academic. My boss has her master's in filmmaking from USC, which it's great film school. I don't know what else to say. I'm like George Lucas, sure. But we've done a lot of really fun stuff. We've gotten to do, like my favorite thing we did a video series on The Hobbit, the movie specifically, and we ended up going to New Zealand and talking with a lot of people that worked in the New Zealand film industry. One of the actors who played one of the Hobbits. It was this insane story that neither of us knew about, but how like basically the Hobbit film specifically killed the New Zealand film industry, or at least made it very hard to unionize. Like people had been asking her for a year. Yeah, like we're both big Tolkien nerds, and people had been asking my boss to do something on the Hobbit films for years, and so we had been kicking it around. And my boss's assistant, who is also a friend that we met on the internet when we were all 13, 15, she had a friend. I believe it was her, Lisa. She's also a YouTuber too. She talks about Dracula. Anyway, I'll have YouTuber friends. Anyway, she had a friend who was like, no, there's this whole thing where like they're called the Hobbit laws, and they were just basically these big, massive union busting laws that were kind of, I guess what's the word I'm looking for here? What's the word? Lobbied by Warner Brothers studio, in effect. And it's right now, because the president there is Jacinda, I'm just forgetting her last name right now. But right before that, it had kind of been like that kind of conservative swing that they had, where it become very like, company friendly, and they wanted to bring people in to just spend money in New Zealand. And Warner Brothers was like, we're gonna leave New Zealand and shoot this elsewhere. If the New Zealand, I'm just fudging a little bit of the details, but specifically the filmmakers of New Zealand like union or petitioned against this rather. There's also like so many other intricacies that go into it, because the Australia Actors Union was very much against the New Zealand filmmakers, because like to them it was like, now we don't have jobs, like we're out of jobs because of this. So what I'm getting at is it's a huge clusterfuck, and that's not even like getting into the making of the Hobbit movies themselves, which were also a mess, like just a nightmare. Yeah. So but it was really cool because we got nominated for a Hugo for that, and that was really fun.
That is cool.
Yeah, I got to meet like George R. R. Martin, which was he was very drunk, and so was I. So that's all I could say to that. Yeah, but that was fun. We've gone to Paris, specifically to talk about The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and that like we of course we also went to the opera, because every time I've gone to Paris, I'm like, I must go to my spiritual home. But we've gotten to do so many really cool things, and honestly, like my background in school is in art history. I originally wanted to be an animator, and my AP art teacher was like, you're really good at talking about art. So, I took the hint. And was just like, okay, and ended up getting into art history, which was fantastic. And in a lot of ways, people make fun of it, but it's kind of been amazing. It's made it a very, a lot of it's just about perception and picking apart the world around you. And I had never thought after I graduated that, like, you know, I'd ever actually use it again in a way that was meaningful. I write and edit videos for YouTube. That's what I do. And I get to talk about, and the nice thing is I get to talk about things I love, like genuinely love, and use skills that I picked up in life.
Yeah, and like work those muscles. Like I really appreciate like the deep dives that you and Lindsay do, because it's like like I never know what I'm gonna get when I tune in. Like you have like the title, but it's like, but really what is gonna happen? Because you have these like natural, just like journey throughout. Like we're gonna go through this story, and it is like what our show is. It's edutainment. It's educational. It's entertaining. And I think, like, you know, Kat probably feels similarly with, like, her degree in just history and being like, what am I going to do with that? And then being able to use a show like ours to, like, deep dive into that and be like, oh, I did learn stuff. This is applicable. Yeah.
This is real world useful knowledge here. See, the value of a liberal arts degree is truly real. And I you know, I say that like sounding kind of twee, but honestly, like zero regrets about it. Just the progression of how those videos work is some of them are very straightforward. They're like kind of immediately what we set out to make, and then we make them, and for the most part they stay the same. But then there's occasionally that video where it's just like you start with a thesis and then that thesis gets like dynamited or Frankensteined into some very, very bizarre stuff. Like we did a video on this Omegaverse kerfuffle. That ended up being the most insane thing to have like taken over. It happened at the beginning of COVID too, so it was just kind of like, is this what my COVID life's going to be? I'm like, this is a PG show, or you know, I want to keep it fairly clean, and the subject matter is unfortunately not. Yeah. The video that we made about it is work safe, but like the subject matter is not. There's just a genre of fiction called Omegaverse, and it's basically like if you supplemented like wolf hierarchies and mating patterns onto humans. What would that be like?
I've had this.
I've just outed Gabe, but she was told about it.
It's just the defeat in your voice, like the resignation, like
I sat her down. I sadly explained it. I said sorry many times. That was something I've read and have also now shared with her.
Oh, well, it's like I'm not here to yuck anyone's yum. It's totally, if that's your thing, it's cool. But we basically stumbled into because it started in fan fiction, ostensibly. Like it's a big fan. If you most fandoms have like Omegaverse tags on AO3, the big fan fiction site, and it's not my thing. But you know what? Sure, you know, I'm not here to yuck anyone's yum, but this particular video was about, it's a big genre on, like, Kindle Unlimited, so, and, you know, that's all self-publishing, which is the Wild Wild West, so this video was about this drama between two authors pertaining to, like, what one author thought of was copyright violation, which it wasn't, but, like, she went and litigated it anyway, and it just blew up into this massive, like, genuinely insane drama that had, like, cases open in, like, 2 states in the United States. It got written up in the New York Times before we even touched it, and then, so we started talking about it in one video, just, like, describing the drama, and that was it, and then the kind of villain of the first one, even though we didn't villainize her, we were just telling it as it is. She went after my boss and tried to intimidate her into taking the video down. And then it blew up into a second part video that got even more insane. Because then we went through like the depositions of all these trials just to like clear our name.
Wow.
Like,
yeah.
Stuff. So that's truly what I cannot have imagined. Like 20-year-old me going out into the world being like, what can I add of value? Like what intellect, like what is my purpose? What is my legacy leaving behind me? And then, you know, me at 33 just being like, okay, so this is a fully disgusting term for when people do the X, Y, and Z thing. And actually someone in court had to like say this and then a stenographer had to write it down. You know, it's just like amazing to me. And if like my mother-in-law was asking me like, oh, what project are you guys working on? You're just kind of like, I don't know how to talk to you about this. our power went out while we were working on that project, so we stayed at their house, and I'm just sitting there reading like all this deposition stuff, and my mother-in-law's like, "Oh, what's this?" And I'm like, I can't. This is not a conversation.
I want to have
60% of these words I don't want to say to my mother-in-law. You know, like, like no.
I want you to still be able to look me in the eye.
Yes, exactly. Explaining it to people my age who are like somewhat internet savvy is hard enough as it is, you know. My mother-in-law who, you know, thinks like Vineyard Vines is cool and like really loves like she loves the Cup song from Pitch Perfect. I'm like, I can't. I love her. She's very sweet, but I'm like, because I love her. Yeah. I don't want to talk about the Omegaverse with her, if that makes sense. Yeah, but so that was. But yeah, it's a very cool job. Like, it has its own struggles. Don't get me wrong. No job is perfect, but it is fun to kind of be surprised like that. You know, that definitely wasn't happening at some of my older jobs. So.
Yeah. There's like a freedom in that too.
Yeah.
And an excitement to like, where are we gonna go? What are we gonna do? And why?
Yeah.
How do we get here?
Like we're so anxious for whatever the new normal with COVID is going to be. Like when we're able to like really travel again. Like because we have a couple of ideas floating around, and it's very exciting, but also very just like. With the situation right now, we got to take it, you know, one day at a time. But like, it's like there's so many ideas floating down there that are probably going to be equally horrifying and fun. So
exciting for sure.
Yeah.
I wanted to pivot before we kind of jump into the film and just talk more about your love of musicals and the opera, and just like what are some of your like what is the draw for you, and like what are some of your favorites and why, I guess.
Gotcha. So my parents are both my mother's still alive. My father passed away when I was 13, but like they both loved musicals. Like just absolutely, you know, my dad was a great singer. My mom just liked going to see shows. And then by the time they had kids, like my mom, you know, was a stay-at-home mom, and my dad didn't make a lot of money. So we didn't go to the theater unless it was like high school, you know, productions of shows. And if we were lucky, like a local dinner theater, like community dinner theater. But like if it had a film version of it, whether it was like a studio film or like a pro shot of something, like we had it. So like growing up, it was just nothing but watching musicals. Like, and my parents were like totally supportive of it. My brother and sister were not supportive of it, but like, because I just like from like day one just like really liked singing. Like that was always something I really liked. And to me, like there was something about singing, especially in the context of theater or even opera, like that's trying to push a narrative that is like so cool to me. Because like musical theater, you know, that's a cliche of it, but like people sing because the emotion is just so big that saying it doesn't compel or doesn't comply, doesn't, what's the word, infer the extent to what you feel something. And that's always been really, really cool to me, like just to be able to play with big emotions like that super easily. I also just like music in general, so when you put like a great lyrics or a great like book of a musical to song, like what you can pull out of that is amazing to me. I guess my very first Broadway musical that I saw was Peter Pan, and it was the Jules Stein one where it's like I'm flying, like that one. And it was at the theater where Wicked plays now, the Gershwin, and I had never seen anything like it before. Like I'd seen Peter Pan before, but like seeing like the massive insane sets and just like people being like rigged up to fly, and then like the vocal talent on display. If I had already been a theater kid, I was like done for at that point. And that same year, my mom took me to see a dinner theater production of Singing in the Rain. Like they did a stage version of that, and it was very small, but like it also blew my mind. I was like, this is what I want to do or like or just be involved with for the rest of my life. Like it was like sports. They couldn't find one that got me, but like that happened, and I was like, yes, this is what I like. And I guess for me, like in terms of musicals that really, I think, get what or exemplify why I like about that. I'm a huge fan of Stephen Sondheim. Like, the works of Stephen Sondheim are just my favorite. Sunday in the Park with George is my favorite musical. If you've never seen it, there's a pro shot of it with Bernadette Peters and Mandy Patinkin. It's about the creation of art, but also just letting go of hurt, bad, emotional feelings, you know, learning to live with a painful past while still creating and looking forward to the future. So, like, for me, that is just, like, it's one of the most profound pieces of media I've seen that talks about that subject, or those subjects, and I highly recommend it. I love Into the Woods too. I know a lot of people, if they know Sondheim show, it's probably Into the Woods or Sweeney Todd, and Into the Woods is just like, again, like a show that makes me cry, like weep. But I also love like a lot of really corny stuff too. Like one, obviously I love Phantom. This is like what we're getting at to here, and I'll save talking about that for later. But I recently saw there was a revival of Oklahoma done a couple of years ago at Circle in the Square, and that's a show. As a kid, I was like, oh, that's corny, and like old people like it, and I just and it's one of the first modern musicals. You know, opera existed, and then obviously like what's the word, vaudeville, and it's not like it was the first thing to ever put you know, songs in a narrative and move it forward with the music, but like it's kind of like the first modern, what we call modern Broadway musical. And so I saw this revival of it at a spared debt, like a very parsed down orchestra. There were no real sets. It was just literally leaning into what the music was doing, and it was sexy, and it was super funny, and it got really creepy and unsettling at points, and I was like, this rocks. Like, this rocks. Like, what else? Yeah. What medium does this? Like, does this? Like this does. Like, it was just a really cool thing to see, you know, going into my 30s. Like, no, this is cool. Like, I don't have words. I just was like, yes, I loved it. Kicked so much butt. And I also just like really like big cheesy stuff too. Like I saw The Lion King again this week, since the first time I'd seen it since high school, and it ruled. I was just like, I don't know, like I was just like it was just, you know, where do you get to see so many talented people like right in front of you, like just giving it 100%? And you know, Broadway isn't the be all end all of musical theater, so I want to put that message out there. Go see community shows, go to your high school shows, go see touring productions of things, but like it's just, yeah, I don't know. It's just such a great collaborative medium, I guess, because it's there's just so many behind the scenes pieces of it that are necessary to make a show work. Like, I saw Wicked this week for the first time ever, and I didn't really care for it, but like the costumes were so insane, and to like see that level of attention and detail put into something like this was really cool. And you know, you always have insane people in the pits. You have all the insane like stage management people that are making sure all of this goes off and happens. I have friends that do sound design on Broadway, and like it's such a crucial part. Like, that's so cool. It's like film in that it's like really collaborative, but it's happening right in front of you, and that's very cool to me.
Yeah, because it's all active. Like I was talking to Kat the other day, because we have minimal experience with musicals, but just from like behind the scenes, like I've worked like stage crew and like, you know, creating the props for like a community theater in college. I worked stage crew and like I was like, that was like one of the best parts, like to see the plays and the dances and like to, you know, be in the booth to like cue the lighting and like thinking of how much goes into like this part is lit and this is that. And like Kat worked in like in the pit orchestra, right, Kat?
Yeah, I was actually like I wanted to be in musical theater, but I had no confidence. I was very insecure, middle school, high schooler. So I would always audition knowing I wasn't going to get a part, but I still did it. And then I was like, you know what? It's fine. I'm just going to be in the pit orchestra, because I could play violin like pretty well, and no one sees you. Like you're basically in darkness, and your mom knows you're in the pit, but like no one else really, like that's about it. Like my grandpa would come to the shows, but it wasn't like a whole thing, like, you know what I mean? So like I was in every single pit orchestra for every musical my school did.
Oh wow.
Because I just really liked it. But Yeah, not actually theater in terms of like I did audition, but I would sing like this, really quiet, and then it wouldn't actually be like, you can't be on stage. We don't have microphones. You need to project.
Sorry,
like, sweetie.
Can I say this, that like I actually didn't really start liking my own voice until my 30s, like, and I had like, so in high school, middle school, I tried out for shows and I was never cast in anything, or if I was in the, like the chorus, where it was just like 8,000 people in the chorus because everyone got a role in the spring musical, you know, like that kind of thing. If I did get cast in anything with a speaking role, it was always like an old lady, which is like such a bummer when you're a kid, because like you don't want to be the old lady. You want to be the ingenue. At least that was how it was for me. You know, comedic relief sort of stuff. And even in college, like, you know, I'd still kind of get cast in those same sort of roles. And I remember auditioning for my last musical in high school, my senior year. And my drama teacher said, you know, you should stick to, the college where I was going to, the University of Delaware, has a bunch of theater student groups. And he was like, you know, if you do theater in high school, and I took drama classes, so this was like devastating to me. He said, you should just stay in like theater. Don't, you know, just maybe just, you know, you're good at acting, you know, like was what he was saying. And so for the longest time, and it was just like, you know, my brother and sister always told me they hated my voice, but that's your brother and sister, you know, like they're just going to, well, I mean, and you can't blame them when you're like, screlting at like 9 p.m. while they're trying to get ready for bed. Like, of course they're going to hate you, and also it is annoying. Like, that is the reality of it. But like, so for the longest time, I just like, you know, was kind of like, well, I don't know if I like really like singing publicly anymore, if that's what I'm about. And then I think it was just getting older, and also like I started doing improv comedy, and that really helped, like, just with confidence a lot, you know, and then, like, I naturally sometimes would sing in shows and got comfortable doing it normally on stage, and then towards my late 20s, in my early 30s, like, I actually started, like, auditioning with confidence, and it was really cool to, like, a lot of it was just not caring, like, yeah. And but I guess what I'm talking, I guess, like, even if, you know, you don't want to perform, it's more like the idea that you care so much when you're in high school, especially if you want to do theater, and, like, people are not going to make that room for you. Like, it's, like, if you're not, like, someone who has parents that are paying for voice lessons and dance lessons, which I definitely didn't have, you know, like, it's very hard for people, even like high school drama teachers, especially if you have a crappy one, like I kind of did, to make room for people to grow, you know? And like, that's like what's really, really hard about it. And like shitty, like, again, pardon me, sorry, again, crappy. For like that, it took me until, like, honestly, I had a kid, and I was like, I don't care anymore. Like, I just don't care what people think about me at this point. And that's actually really helped. But like, we don't let kids not care, you know. That's like my one kind of beef in a lot of performing arts teachers is, you know, they want kind of a finished product or something that's easy for them to nurture, versus giving people who might be shy or, you know, not like a chance. And I love doing, I'm very lucky I get to perform a lot now too, and that's really cool. But like, I also did pit for a little bit too, because of that. So I did a lot of pit and stage crew. I have a really sad story that maybe I won't get into, but like, I was in a production of Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat in middle school as one of the wives, which is just like one of the ensembles, and none of the other like boys in my group. So like, it's basically, there's Jacob the patriarch, and then he has wives, and then he has sons, and like, they're the ensemble. They each dance with each other, and all of the boys playing his sons, nobody wanted to be with me. Like, they were all like, she's the ugly fat one, we don't want to be with her. And then it was so awful. And then the wives also like doubled as like the dance ensemble, and I remember this is very clearly burned into my head. The choreographer they had hired and the director pulled me aside and said, like, well, I realized that I wasn't being used in this one dance scene. And I was like, oh, am I going to be in this? And they were like, we don't think you'd look like this costume would be flattering on you, was what they had told me. And I went home that day. I cried to my mom. I was so devastated. And like, this is the same year, like maybe 2 months after my dad had passed away. And like, I was just like super depressed. And my mom was just like, how do you tell your kid like this is really, you know, but like my mom was just like, and that day I quit that night, and then I joined the pit the next day because I really liked band, and the band teacher was like, well, there aren't really any kids in the band, it's all high school, college students, and, you know, retirees, so you'll fit in there. And so for a long time I did pit, I played French horn, so yeah.
Nice. I played trumpet.
Yeah, brass. And that's my sad story. So wherever that director is and that choreographer is, I hope they know. Now I'm successful and talking on Twitter about butts. So thank you. Thank you.
That's so real.
We next week are talking about K through 12, Melanie Martinez's musical visual album, and we just had and we've kind of come through it this whole year in like how jealous we are of like Gen Zs and like this kind of supportive environment that they have, and how everyone's like, it's okay to be yourself and you gotta love your body, and you have role models like Lizzo, and then you also have like role models like and, like you have Lil Nas X, and we're like, we were so miserable, and like everyone told us we were awful and that we can't accomplish any dreams. So we're all just very sad. And
you have to wear low-cut jeans.
So yeah, right. You have the most unflattering jeans that ever could, or no, like just not supportive either. Worst jeans.
I have like this memory of being like 2000, and I'm reading Cosmo Girl, and they have like a little interview with David Boreanaz, who played Angel on Buffy, and then an Angel, and then I had such a huge crush on him, and I remember they asked him like, oh, what do you think makes a woman hot? And this is me, 13 years old, reading this, and he's like, oh, a woman who wears like low-cut jeans and a white t-shirt, and I was just like, well, now I know how I'm gonna seduce David Boreanaz, but also as a 13-year-old, but also like it was like, yes, the low-cut jeans, but also you put those on and they don't like look amazing on you, then like go back to the sewers, baby. That's where exactly. No one will ever love you.
That's it. That's the reason why you wouldn't.
It was hard because like musical theater is also just like a very big bastion for nerdy kids, but like you still in high school have like the same kind of cliquish drama, infighting, and like bullying and stuff like that. And it's like, you think I'm the only freak in the world, even though this is like such a common narrative. Like pretty much all my friends who did theater were like, yes, this is also my experience too. I wasn't the favorite kid in theater, so I thought I could never do theater. And I didn't look like, an ingenue, so I thought no one's ever going to want me to perform in anything. And I'm so very jealous of Gen Z,
Good
like
for them.
that you'll see kids having these conversations, and you're like, that's very cool.
Like, I'm so happy for you, and also
and I wish it was for me.
I feel like when we covered Climax, we were talking about like the dance community, and it's very competitive, even though it's collaborative. And I feel like musical theater is similar to that, because there is like one, you always have like what is the person where they could fill in for you? What do
understudy.
Oh, an understudy. Yeah.
It's like weird. Like you have that person who's just like kind of
waiting for you to trip.
Yeah, exactly.
Like how many horror films are like about a murderous like understudy who like gets to be the star,
or even just like
murder.
showgirling, like somebody like just showgirl shoving them down the stairs or putting beads on the stairs, that sort of thing.
Which is like so like that environment can be so competitive and can get toxic like anywhere. But then there's also like you were explaining, like improv, which like I've done, and it definitely helped like our show and just me being able to be a host in anything, or just like a public speaker. Like it definitely helps, but it's so supportive. Like it's like it's that comfort of like, you're gonna go out there, you're gonna throw something up and someone's gonna catch it, and they're gonna, keep that going. So to like combine this idea of like we're improvising and it's also musical, like that, like when I watched you all, I was like, this is wild. Like a chord just starts, like this music just starts, and then you're just like going with it, and you remember the words that you just said. Like I'm like, this is wild. It's
honestly like, and honestly, improv lends itself so well to musical theater, because like you singing I still get scared singing in front of people, and I get scared doing improv, and like improv is all about like, not to say that organizations can have their own problems, or that it's also not immune to drama, but what improv has really like taught me is like you just kind of have to trust yourself, and that trust that other people will take care of you, and to not like get too into your own head about it. And in a weird way, like that made it so much easier for me to sing in front of people. It was like you just gotta do it. If you don't do it, then you'll always wonder, why didn't I make that choice, or why did I do like that. Like you just got to go out there and do it. And once you start doing it enough times, you just stop getting like so in your head about it,
Yeah.
Or you're able to do it with confidence. And yeah, doing improv musical stuff in particular is really fun, because at least with our ensemble, about half of us are musical theater people, and the other half are just improv people who like music, but they might not necessarily be musical theater people. And like to see those two instincts that people have kind of come up against each other makes something really wonderful. Like someone who's really good with musical theater and knows how it's structured and like the tropes and cliches of it can pull from whatever insane thing a comedy person is doing with the energy that they give. Like it's a really cool form of improv.
Yeah, I'm always impressed. Whenever, so when the world is a little safer and you're doing that again, I would love to watch. And I encourage anyone who's local here in Philadelphia to definitely check out a show. And when, at the end, we'll kind of throw out, like, your social media, because I know you're also on, like, TikTok, and you're really great. You can hear you sing on TikTok.
Oh, yeah.
I tell you, I'm a crazy fan. Outing myself as a weirdo. And then also, like, your Twitter's super entertaining and also educational. But I do want to hop into the film / the opera that is. So I will give the brief synopsis from IMDb about Phantom of the Opera, which is: a young soprano becomes the obsession of a disfigured and murderous musical genius who lives beneath the Paris Opera House. As
you do,
Yes.
Yeah.
This was actually, so I've heard many of the songs, because it's hard to live in today's world and not have heard like a Phantom of the Opera. But I had never actually, like, I'd seen scenes probably because it was on the TV and I like put it on, and I had never really like sat down. Kat has seen it like a bunch, so she was like, okay, yeah, I'll watch it again. This is fun. So I watched it for the first time, like all the way through. For this. So I was just like, oh, okay.
Oh my God. I'm so many emotions to say, like, because I don't know how you want me to get into this. Like, I have a very, very complex relationship with Phantom of the Opera in general.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it. Yeah, hop in.
So I know specifically we're here to talk about the movie, and the movie it's not good. At least in my opinion, it is not a good representation of the show. But also, again, when I say I have a very complicated relationship with this movie, I've seen it so many times that you'd have to argue, and I'm like, this movie sucks and blah, 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 blah. But I've seen it so many times that you're like, wait a minute.
Does it?
Do you hate it? Do I honestly hate it? Like, I've watched, like, this is such a fun movie to, like, drunk watch with friends.
Yes. Yeah.
So in a way, it's kind of grown on me. And the more I think about Joel Schumacher, the director, like, the more it's also kind of grown on me. And he, recently departed Joel Schumacher, may he rest in peace, for giving us this insane piece of pop culture that he did. The show for me is like the show that kind of launched my real foray into Broadway. Like, I'd always liked Broadway, but like this was the show that got me like really serious about it. And it started actually with do you remember the TV show Wishbone? Yes. So Wishbone, for those who did not know it, the most adorable thing in the world. Wishbone was a show on PBS in the mid-90s, and every episode was this cute little Jack Russell Terrier, and he'd have like some real world story going on, and he would relate it to a book from classical literature. And so half the episode would be a little dog like acting out in full costume, Romeo and Juliet, or the story of Joan of Arc, or Oliver Twist, and they did an episode of Phantom of the Opera. Yeah, Robin Hood. Yeah, they A Tale of Two Cities. Some of them would get like really weird. You're like, oh man, you're going for some you're going. They'd be doing like Moliere's The Invalid, and you're just like, oh sure, okay, like. And I love that show. And I remember seeing that episode, and Beauty and the Beast was already my favorite Disney movie. And I remember seeing this and being like, something about this is like clicking for me. Because I was a weird kid, and I think it was always just a weird and kind of a lonely kid. And like, so anytime there's ever like a lonely character in a thing, I like grabbed onto it really hard. So I loved that. And then the silent horror film version made in 1925 with Lon Chaney, I saw them about the same time. Loved them both. And then in 7th grade, I was in an accelerated reading program, and my teacher had all these books just on her like shelf, and one of them was Phantom of the Opera, and I remember going like, I remember liking the Wishbone episode of this.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm gonna
let's
read
read
that.
this.
And the book, like the fandom is like my thing, but the book is like really where my heart is, like in general, and like I have a tattoo that's of the original French novels cover.
So cool.
But like, so that was where it really began. And then shortly after that happened, my dad passed away, and my mom was trying to figure out like what to do with me. And she couldn't take me to see Broadway shows, but she could take me to Borders Books and like buy me a cast album recording. And you used to be able to like listen to the entire CD at the store. And I would just standing there one day in the musical section listening to the double album cast recording, and I begged my mom to buy it for me, and she did. And that's as the rest they say is history. And that's how I got really into fandom after that. Like, that is what launched it. That is what started fan fiction. That is how I met my friends. Like, that's where fandom comes for me. And this all happened in 2001, and there had been so much hubbub trying to get this musical made into a movie prior to that. So it debuted in 1987, the year I was born, on Broadway. And people have been pushing for years to get it made. They wanted Michael Crawford and Sarah Brightman to star in it, which they're not TV-looking or film people, so it wouldn't have worked in general. And at the time, once it started kicking back up again that they were going to make the movie in the early 2000s, the rumor was that it was going to be Antonio Banderas playing the Phantom. And I remember everyone's on like LiveJournal, and they're on their like little GeoCities web rings and message boards just being like, oh no, we can't have that. And then when they announced Gerard Butler and Emmy Rossum, and everyone was kind of like waiting on or just like waiting to see, oh, will they be able to sing? I think it was just a very interesting surprise with what they got. And I love Emmy Rossum, and in a way I've grown to love Gerard Butler too. But like, so all this is to say, this was the mindset I was in 2004 when I went and saw this movie on opening night. Just like it's. Sorry, I'm like trying to put myself back in that profound feeling of like, this is the thing that I really love. And I went and saw it on opening night with my sister and this girl I had a massive crush on. And she knew I was obsessed with Phantom. And so we were sitting there watching it, and I'm just like looking at her going like, this is not what I like, I swear, like, and she's just like kind of sitting there, and I'm like, and like, so for, especially when you're 17, if you hate something, you're going to be like very much like, this sucks and it's the worst thing ever, and you have no sense of perspective on it. And as I've gotten older through time and gone back and listened to people talk about how like, oh, this movie is what got me into musical theater, this is my introduction to Phantom, and I have it, it's really close to my heart. I might be able to admit it's kind of cheesy, but it's still really close to me. Like, I've gotten like, cool, you know what, I respect it for that. And especially after having watched the Dear Evan Hansen movie, which is boring as hell, and has like no, it doesn't even care that it's a musical at all. It's just nothing but like 1-2 shots back and forth. Like, in hindsight, I give it to Joel Schumacher. It might not be my vision for Phantom, but it's a vision. So, and like, there's an aesthetic choice made. There's a commitment to something in it, and so like, also like there are things I genuinely do love, like Minnie Driver in it as like kind of the head diva of the opera, Carlotta. It's just a great camp performance. Like, she gets what this movie is about, and you're like, yes, thank you.
Yeah, like when I was watching it, I was like, we need to like bring this back, like how we would just go ham on these like productions. Like, I was like thinking like Moulin Rouge. I was just like, I want like, what can we do? What is out there?
Like,
that we can
how do we fund this? Where's the money?
Bring it back. Like,
just make it big, because everything wants to be so hyper literal. Like, because it was also a problem just in Broadway in general in the 2000s. You had a great show like The Producers, which is very lampshady and like constantly breaks the fourth wall, and it works very well for like that show. But like every show in like the 2000s suddenly became like, we have to constantly make fun of the fact that this is a musical, or that you might have to pull yourself out of your suspension of disbelief, you know, to be like, see, this is weird and wouldn't make sense. And it definitely happened in film musicals in particular, where it's like, we need to look serious, and like with like the Les Mis film, where it's like, no, we have to record the vocals live, even if it's not really lending itself well to the music, you know, like
Yeah.
it's just like I hate it so much. And in that sense, like, I respect Phantom for at least, again, committing to being full butt musical.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and it definitely is. And you definitely get transported in there, with it being like my first time really experiencing even just like the story, like you were saying with like Beauty and the Beast. I definitely was thinking of like Hunchback, which was my favorite film growing up. I was just like, this is about compassion and loving other people, and like, I was like, this is my favorite thing in the world. And see, like, there's some, you know, just triggering awful ableist things that are happening where I'm just like, this is a product of the time. For sure. There's a lot of that where it's like, and then I was like, if this was made today, the Phantom is just like an incel. Like, this is so work. You know, and, what's his name is just a Chad for him.
Well, you know, it's like, it's very interesting how much like this kind of thing appeals to I'll just generalize and say like teenage girls here. And I think there's just something to be said with like, you don't really get a lot of female protagonists, antagonists that are not, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for here? So let me backpedal. Like, when you're a 13-year-old girl like me and you see a character like the Phantom, you're like, why is he ostracized? Oh, it's because of his, well, on the surface, it's because of his looks. But, like, the real reason why he sucks is because he's manipulative, murderous, controlling jerk. But as a 13-year-old, you're like, oh, people don't like him because of his looks. And when you're a 13-year-old girl, what is, like, the big thing that people will, like, hammer you for? You're not cute, you know, like that's the sort of thing. And you're like, cool, there's a character that would understand me, but also would be obsessed with me. It's like, I wanted a boyfriend. So I was just like, there's so much like appeal baked into that. And it's not like terribly dissimilar from like people who like Edward Cullen. Again, not like my thing at all, but I'm like, it's a very like teenage girl thing to just be like, yeah, he's messed up, but also he's sad. But also, he understands my darkness. But also, he's obsessed with me. And, again, from, like, it just hit all the buttons, you know? I'm not proud to admit it, but, like...
No, I agree completely with, like, I can see that appeal. Because it is very much, like, this is a person, like... to be the center of this person's world, he dedicates so much to it. He kills for you. Like, that is very, like... Cullen in like any like film of the time or book of the, you know, teen read. That boy is very obsessed with you, and like it's also like you're his hero too, right? Like the person who can like save him.
Right, exactly. I can save him. I can change him. It'll be totally fine. Totally fine. But I also, the thing I also really liked about it, the flip side of the coin, is I also really, really loved, especially the book version of her, but like the musical, depending on, I don't know necessarily Emmy Rossum's performance in this, but like depending on the actress playing her on the stage in musical, I always really liked Christine too, because like there's again that thing, like I feel like if I hadn't found Phantom at the time that I did, it might not have hit as hard, but like she's, you know, grieving and lost her dad and really depressed and alone in the world, and how do you find the ability to move on past that was like something that really appealed to me as like as a 13-year-old. Like it was just like the perfect combination. And then there's that dingus Raoul, you know, and you're just like, I don't care about him.
He takes forever to go find a sword.
Just the 15-minute sword intermission.
The sword. So that was an added for the movie thing, and they just wanted to pad something out, and like that scene. Like, I just want to be in the boardroom where they were like, do you know what this musical needs is a 5-minute sword scene.
Like,
That is
Yeah.
poorly
bad.
choreographed.
Very
Really
badly
dramatic vest
Yeah.
removal while running down steps. Just like, you know, they really just wanted to highlight
Yeah.
this man.
Yeah, they're like,
Like,
oh.
what do we do?
and he's like riding the horse, and then he's just like
Yeah.
not there for like a long
Yeah.
time. Like, where did you go?
Yeah,
and
and then
just
he,
let her
like-
have this time.
He defeats the Phantom, like he has him on like a sword, and then he's like, okay, I'm gonna go now. I guess this will resolve itself. And you're just like,
Yeah, he
why
learned
did
his
you
lesson.
add this? Yeah, like, you think just like being like, okay, I totally took down your manhood in front of the chick you have a crush on, but now we're gonna go. This will have no consequence. Like, it's just very why. Like, there's a lot of why decisions in this movie. Quite
Person with,
frankly,
like, minimal social interactions. It doesn't
Yeah.
understand like that will
Yeah.
totally get that
Yeah.
what's happening here. And
yeah.
I'll get over the fact that he's been grooming my girlfriend
yeah.
her whole life.
I will
Yeah.
say, I do agree though that Christine was like very powerful, and that was like, even though she had been through so much and that she experienced like that level of trauma, and like even in like exploring the fact she had 100% been being groomed by this man, and like her like kind of like reckoning with the fact that something that she felt so connected with throughout her whole life, because she thought this was the angel that her dad sent her, like that was just such a fundamental part of her grieving process, and how like aside from the ableism elements, that there were like the way in which she was like realizing like, yeah, murder is bad, but I'm still going to be honest yet empathetic and stand strong. Like, the movie is not ending with her going with the Phantom, which
Yeah.
I was rewatching this as an adult. I was like, I don't remember what happens, but if that's what happens, I'm upset, because that sets a precedent for like accepting
all the other incels.
and also just like
try hard
grooming
enough.
children,
Well,
and like acting
I will
like
s-
that's totally cool. So I was
Yeah.
happy that
I
didn't
will-
happen.
I will say this: the stage like the having spoken to her since she was a child thing is a movie thing. Like, that's not in the stage show. It's not in the book either. The book, it's only like they've only known each other for a few months. Like, she'd only been taking voice lessons for a
Okay.
few months, and the stage show just doesn't imply that at all. Like, you don't know how long; you just know that she's been taking lessons recently, and like. So, like, there's a lot of
That's a
a
whole
lot of
different
choices about
vibe.
this. Yeah, like, this is a very active choice they made for this movie, and also what always creeped me about it, at least as an adult, is that Emmy Rossum was 16 when they were filming this.
Yeah,
which,
and he was like 40.
He's 40, and he was like 36.
Oh gosh,
and
I thought she was 18. I'm bad at math. Okay,
no,
continue.
she was 16 because she's my age, and I remember being like in high school, being like,
She was
"That
big
stupid
making
bitch.
out with
She's
those
that stupid
36-year-old
bitch."
men.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's so, and like you can tell, like part of the problem with this movie is there's a really, really great pro shot of the 25th anniversary show, and like it's fantastic. The actors are all of like the right age. They're all professional Broadway West End singers. It's fantastic. I highly recommend checking it out. It's easily available, but they have great, even if you don't like the idea of Christine and the Phantom together, they have great chemistry. Like this great, like you can see like the tension is there, you know? Whereas with this
Gotcha.
movie, especially watching it as someone who's almost the same age Gerard Butler was when they filmed it, he looks so uncomfortable. Like he's like they have no chemistry whatsoever, and it's just like
Yeah.
she's 16 and he's like probably a 36-year-old man. Like, okay, well, I have to not make this too weird, you know? It's just like
Yeah.
it's such a strange
So
choice.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, the director needs to know. I understand that he is no longer with us, but
Yeah.
all I'm saying is that
No,
is
it's
an
bad.
interesting choice that is upsetting.
it is a very
And that's a trend
very,
in Hollywood too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the young woman, much older man. And then
Yeah.
it really skews your understanding of like how we should look as well, which
Yeah.
is like
Yeah.
just further causes problems for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I like kind of going back to what Kat was saying about the ending in Christine. There's like that. I mean, obviously the cliche where she's like, it's not physically that's ugly. It's that inside you're ugly. But even still, like, when he is, like, being really awful and he's, like, torturing her, like, beloved and all that, like, she still takes a moment to be like, what happened to you? Like, what did they do? Because she doesn't know. She didn't get that crash course background check that the boyfriend got, and he still was like, gotta go murder him. But, like, she is like, what has happened through all this time to make you like this and to think this is the way that you solve problems. And, like, I really loved that part of, like, I could do without the really uncomfortable and excruciatingly long kiss. I could very much do without, but before that I was like, wow, because it was me, I'd be like, you need to go. Like, there's a problem. I hate you. You're a monster. Like, inside. But she was like, what's going on? Let's talk about this, bud.
What's interesting to me, and what I do like about the Andrew Lloyd Webber version, not necessarily just the movie, but the stage show in general, is this book is over 100 years old, and it's had about 8,000 different adaptations. Some that lean like full horror, some that are just kind of like middling potboiler mysteries, some of them that are just ripoffs of the Andrew Lloyd Webber version. But what the Andrew Lloyd Webber, and it's interesting to see what they lean into, like what elements of the story are what they speak to, and that the Andrew Lloyd Webber version is so invested in this idea of compassion and personal strength through some really screwed up stuff, especially in regards to Christine. Like, Christine has had a hard life, and that's the thing that I think that a lot of versions don't really lean into, and I think that explain a lot of why her character is the way she is. Like, in the book, she's kind of a loner, like, her dad's passed away, nobody really wants to be her friend, she's just kind of this really weird girl, you know, and she's gone through a lot, and this thing that has brought her comfort has been a huge source of manipulation, but she's human and still has attachment to it, and, like, how do you navigate that? And, like, that's always been just, like, I love Christine Sorry so much. Like, it's a character I really, really love. Yeah,
and I think I definitely felt like I wanted more from that, for sure. So because we do, unfortunately, have to wrap. It's like time goes by so quickly whenever we have guests. When we're just like, tell us more about you. We want to hang out.
I could talk about, like, Phantom forever. Number one, like, just nonstop. We have a really good video. Okay, I'll save it for the plugs, actually. So, yeah.
Yes. Well, I just want to say, does anyone have any last thoughts that they really want to share about Phantom? Any version of it, honestly.
Well, if you want to see fundamental horror filmmaking, you got to watch the Lon Chaney version, 1925. Fantastic. Like, so much of the horror genre owns a lot to it. And it's also just one of my favorite movies. It's great. Also, Phantom of the Paradise is my favorite adaptation of Phantom of the Opera. And that is a Brian De Palma 70s camp horror musical, and it is fantastic.
Yeah, we need to write it down and see that as well.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite movies, like, far and away. Because it's goofy, but also has, like, it leans into, like, the kind of new romantic cheese too. So
got you.
And it's also horror, so it's fine. And there's a Freddy Krueger Phantom that stars Robert. Oh my gosh, the actor who plays Freddy Krueger, Robert Englund, and it's not Freddy Krueger, but the character is basically the Phantom if he were Freddy Krueger, and it's Phantom of the Opera.
Wow, interesting.
It's quite bad. So you got a lot to, like, look through, but those are my last Phantom of the Opera thoughts for right now.
Yeah, which is we have more. We should do more.
Yeah.
And I if anything, this musical series has been so fun because one, it's been kind of like a break from our usual heavy topics, but they're like musical, like the same with horror. Like, people often see horror and they're like, think one thing, they're like, oh, it's just slashers, right? And then you're like, no, if you, like, just look at our show, it's so diverse. And the same thing with, like, even musical horror. Like, none of our episodes have been the same. They're not run of the mill. And like, going from something like Repo to having Phantom of the Opera and eventually doing Sweeney Todd, like, those are so diverse, and it's such a unique way to tell stories that I'm appreciative of.
if I could just put in like one, I know we're like pressed for time, but the thing that was like, as I was thinking about coming on here tonight, I was like, well, you were saying like we might talk about like why you like horror. And the thing to me that I like about horror is that it plays on big emotion. It plays on big emotion in a way that a lot of, I think, other genres of film don't really get to play in, because the heightened emotion is so much of what makes horror fun to watch. Like, it's people experiencing the extremes of either things that we've felt before or that we've thought about, like wondered what we would be like if we were in that scenario. Like, you are just living through really, really big emotions and really high stakes. And like, I think they both of the genres kind of play into the very, very well. And I think that's kind of why I like them both a lot. But yeah.
Yeah, well, it's thinking like, you're projecting either because you're screaming, you're projecting because you're singing, and you're getting across the theater. Yeah, it definitely, they play in similar emotions and that kind of like adrenaline that's there too, and that you can feel that. That's awesome. Where can our listeners and viewers find you, and any things that you want to plug so that people can check out live or just like online, wherever it is?
Okay, well, you can find me on Twitter at @AngelinaY, as in the word WHY, Angelina WHY. And when you see my Twitter, you will know why that's my handle, because it's very goofy. And you can also see the work that I do on the YouTube channel Lindsay Ellis. Just search it. That's it. We have a really awesome video actually about this movie called Phantom of the Opera. Joel Schumacher made a bad one or something like that. I can't remember the title, but like we do have a really great video discussing this movie in more depth if you'd like to see that. And also I will be in a musical called Christmas Town the Musical at Comedy Sports the last 2 weekends of December. It's a Christmas show, so yeah.
We'll be there.
And a musical and puppets. So yeah.
Yes, I love puppets.
Me too.
I've worked with puppeteers and voice actors, and we have on PhillyCam, if people are watching on PhillyCam, we have a show that is a combination of puppets, live music, and cooking. It has all those things. It's a quintessential public access show called Chef Trek Adventures. Always play it because it's phenomenal.
Awesome.
But I hope everyone enjoyed this episode. It's super educational. It was so great to get to know you, Angelina, and like instead of just stalking you from afar.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I was so excited to come, so thank you.
Yeah, yes. And for anyone who is listening, make sure you, like and subscribe. And then also, if you have your own thoughts about Phantom of the Opera or musicals, if there's a musical we haven't covered yet and you want to hear, or a guest that you suggest, let us know. And you can always send your thoughts to theghouls@gmail.com. And you can also follow us on social media everywhere. Thank you, Tyler. We have a comment. This is a great stream. Hi, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And so thank you all so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe to our guest as well and catch up with that. And with that being said, Kat,
Don't get married.
they'll eat your kids.
Yep.
Okay.